What's going on, Dolphins fans? It's Connor from the Dolphins Dive, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about wide receivers ahead of this upcoming training camp and potential camp battles and how I see the roster falling. So, wide receiver is one of the most loaded rosters on every NFL team in terms of how many people they bring into a training camp. The Dolphins are bringing 11 receivers, and they could add more ahead of this training camp. And I'm going to go through all of those names right here. So obviously, most notably, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Robbie Chosen, River Craycraft, Braxton Berrios, Eric Ezukama, Braylon Sanders, Freddie Swain, Dawood Davis, and Chris Coleman. Now, there's a very clear line of the guys that are obviously going to make the team and obviously probably not going to make the team. But I'm going to be analyzing each person and how I see this camp going for each guy. So, going off of last year's roster, because I'm kind of just trying to project who's going to end up getting cut down, the Dolphins only kept 5 wide receivers. So there's a lot of names there, and there's not going to be a lot kept. So just doing some field work. Obviously, we all know Tyreek Hill is the clear number 1 receiver, and Jalen Waddle is the clear number 2. So I would say at most the Dolphins keep 4 more guys between all of those names I just listed. So number 1 and number 2 receiving is a clear cut. We know who it is. When it gets to number 3, I honestly think it's an all-out war. I don't think there's a clear number 3. I think the battle of receivers competing for wide receiver 3 are going to be the guys that all make the roster, and everyone else is getting cut. So obviously, we have Cedric Wilson still on the books. He's due about, I think, $6 to $8 million. The Dolphins have been looking to trade him. No trade has happened yet. So if he does not get traded, it makes that competition even more competitive. So I would say as of right now, the wide receiver 3 competition, in terms of people, obviously everybody's going to be competing for wide receiver 3, aside from the top 2. But the guys I think are going to be seriously pushing for it is going to be Cedric Wilson, if not traded, Robbie Chosen, and Eric Ezukama. I think those are the clear-cut 3 guys. I'd love to argue River Craycraft as well, so I'm going to throw him in that mix, but I just don't think they're going to pull the trigger on actually giving him that 3rd receiver job. But everything he's shown for us as a Dolphin has been nothing but positive. He's a hell of a blocker and more than capable at receiver and very reliable. I mean, he's white, so it's kind of just it fits the narrative. But I think it really comes down to Cedric, Chosen, Craycraft, and Eric Ezukama. I think Braxton Berrios will probably easily make this roster simply as a return guy and a backup receiver. He's had bigger receiving roles. I just don't think he kind of competes with the crew, in my opinion, but maybe he goes off in training camp. But I do think he likely makes this roster as a returner. So, how do I see that wide receiver 3 battle going? In my head, to make this as easy as possible, it means Cedric Wilson gets traded to help make this decision, but I want to go over potential snap counts that are getting vacated, because this actually was eye-opening for me. Obviously, last year, our number 3 receiver was Trent Sherfield, who's now a Buffalo Bill, sadly, and he's leaving 658 snaps vacated, which is a lot more than I had expected. Not to mention, we also are losing Mike Gesicki, who for us was mainly was a big slot receiver. So if we're being realistic, he had 505 snaps. Let's say at least half of them were receiving snaps, so I'd say call it 300. So we're really having like close to 1,000 snaps vacated at the receiver position that are up for grabs between all of these people. So, like I said, I think it's gonna be a battle. I think it really comes down to Cedric, Chosen, Ezukama, and Craycraft. Eric Ezukama, we really just need to see how he does in his 2nd training camp. Obviously, Mike McDaniels had glowing words about the progress we've seen from him. And the thing that I think gives Ezukama a big leg up on the potential other guys is he has a different body type and skill set than the rest of the guy. He's a bigger guy, which is going to give him more blocking that the other guys don't have just based off his size. Cedric Wilson's more of like a small, shifty guy. Chosen's a lanky speed guy. And Craycraft's a dog, more of a reliable lunch pail, hard hat kind of guy. But Eric Ezukama is a big guy, and maybe he comes out in training camp, balls out, is a big body who can run routes, and he clearly wins the job. It's yet to be seen, but I think I'm not underestimating Ezukama, despite having like a redshirt rookie year where he was not talked about enough. I could be like, oh, well, he was just a rookie. He's not going to do anything. He's probably going to get cut. But I have high expectations for him. So in my opinion, I think the winner of the third receiving job is going to be Cedric Wilson, if he is kept. So the depth chart, if Cedric Wilson is kept, in my opinion, will look like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson. And I say Cedric Wilson over Robbie Chosen simply based off of skill set. Robbie Chosen as a pure receiver is better than Cedric Wilson. I have more trust in Cedric Wilson as a blocker, which is important in this scheme. And like I mentioned, there's 1,000 snaps up for grabs. So Cedric Wilson will have his fair share. Robbie Chosen will have his fair share. Eric Azukama could have his fair share. But I think in terms of comfort, in terms of blocking, if Cedric Wilson is kept, he will be that third receiver in terms of total snaps. So Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Robbie Chosen, Braxton Berrios, and Eric Ezukama if they keep 6 receivers. If they don't keep 6 receivers, that could leave Berrios on the outs or even Robbie Chosen. But like I said, there's also that chance that Cedric Wilson does get cut. In that case, it would be Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Robbie Chosen, Berrios, and Ezukama, with River Craycraft potentially also making that roster. I think River Craycraft ends up on our practice squad if he's not on our 53-man roster. I hate I don't think we should cut Craycraft. It's just based off the numbers. Like, we have so many people in this room, but Craycraft is so reliable and dependable. He can play every single receiving spot that we need him to. He knows the playbook inside and out. He's a hard-working guy who can block. So I'm hoping we can somehow manage to keep Craycraft on the roster. I think Craycraft's best way onto the roster is with Cedric Wilson getting traded, and then us keeping 6 receivers, which would be Hill, Waddle, Chosen, Berrios, Ezukama, and Craycraft. I think that's his best way onto the roster. As for the other guys, I see them getting cut and ending up on the practice squad. I think Braylon Sanders will probably end up on the practice squad again. But he had a tremendous training camp. Maybe once again he beats people out just straight up. I mean, I'm not opposed to, as I mentioned in my previous videos, you're talking about people's dreams. I'm not saying none of these guys cannot do it. So I'm rooting for them. I hope they either make this team or make another team and continue their NFL careers. But I think Braylon Sanders, Freddie Swain, David Davis, and Chris Coleman are obviously all on the outs, with a couple of them probably making the practice squad. So that's my breakdown for this video. Check out the Dolphins Dive for dope Dolphins merch. Comment your thoughts. Do you disagree or do you agree? Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, I'll catch y'all.